thank you to all the community leaders and everyone for the community that came out, has come out to support our immigrant community. This is something that we started talking about it yesterday afternoon as something necessary to get done. And I am overwhelmed by all of the partners in the community that are saying that we're going to choose love, not hate. We're going to come together rather than divide. It's just really heartening to see so many people willing to stand up to support our immigrant community. And I'm sure there are many other people out there that would be here if they could be here. And I know they stand in solidarity with us. I want to thank our MC, Kathleen. Thank you for opening this space to us and for all the work that you continue to do around immigration and refugee work. I also want to thank immigration attorney Joe Molina, who you'll be hearing from in just a second, with a lot of important information to share. I want to thank Karina Valencia, staff attorney of the Immigration Coalition. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Karina. I want to thank a good friend, community member, and a dreamer, Rodrigo Pimentel, who's been such a strong voice on these issues and standing up for dreamers here locally, at the state level, and throughout the country. So thank you, Rodrigo. Thank you. I want to thank another great friend, not just of me personally, but of every community that is marginalized, that is suffering, and that needs support. That's Reverend Dr. Donnie Anderson from the Rhode Island Service Coordinator Collaboration. We have the Commissioner of Public Safety for the City of Providence, Stephen Parry. I appreciate you deeply. State Rep Marcia Ranglin-Bassel. Means a lot to all of us to have you here representing the state. We have another great friend, a councilman from Central Falls, Franklin Solano. And this is a reminder, it's not just about Providence. This is standing in solidarity with every community. So thank you again to all the organizations, to all the partners, and to all the stakeholders. It really is a great representation of our entire community that's standing up here today. It's one that not only stands together, but that supports our most vulnerable in time of great need. For weeks now, the Trump administration has been issuing reports and spreading fear in our communities across the country. The threat of nationwide deportation raids has cast a dark cloud of uncertainty, and it has caused panic in working families from coast to coast. Many of us cannot fathom the very real, frightening, and terrifying nightmare that some of our neighbors are living through right now simply because of those tweets and those words. Fear is driving them into the shadows, and that affects all of us. When people feel targeted, they disconnect themselves, and that affects our sense of community, our economy, our culture, and every part of our way of life. We have approximately 11 million undocumented immigrants living in the United States at this moment. We didn't get here overnight. We're not going to solve this issue overnight, regardless of what the president says and his fear-mongering of deportation raids throughout the country. This is simply feeding red meat to the base, and it's not something that's actually solutions-oriented. It's just meant to spread fear. But this dark period in our nation's history that we are living through right now makes it clear more than ever that we need comprehensive immigration reform at the federal level. We understand and we agree that some folks are seriously suffering. We cannot stand idly by and be silent when we have otherwise perfectly law-abiding residents whose lives have been thrown in limbo as we search for a viable pathway to legal status. As you'll hear from immigration law experts later on, our nation's immigration system needs dramatic improvements because it is broken. We have folks who are ready to study for the test, pay for their fees, and do whatever else it takes that's needed to fix our broken immigration system and open those doors that have been closed to them. Just 1 month ago here in Providence, we celebrated during PVD Fest as hundreds of people welcomed new citizens who lived out their new chapter in their American dream by taking the oath of office to become United States citizens, and they were welcomed with open arms. I recognize them for their resilience and thank them for choosing to be part of our family here in Providence. And I remember sharing with them that they are now fully, even on paper, part of our community that stands for certain values that we will never relinquish. However, today it's unfortunate that those values are being undermined by the threat of massive raids. That is not the country that we welcomed them into, and we don't want anyone to believe that that's what we stand for. So as the Trump administration considers raids throughout the country, and potentially even in our community, I want to make it clear that our local law enforcement will not be aiding or assisting in any way in their hate-filled efforts to spread fear in our community. I am disheartened that the administration in Washington and ICE have chosen division over inclusivity and hope and fear over hope. This comes after months of families being separated at the border, children living in cages, and inhumane living conditions being spread into our detention centers. By once again proposing the separation of families, they have deepened those cords that divide us throughout the country. This level of cruelty is simply unacceptable and un-American. One family being affected by this is one too many, and we're not going to stand for it in our community. While we do not know exactly what may come, as a community, we want everyone to know that we stand by all of our residents, regardless of their immigration status. And it's unfortunate that I have to repeat this, but I want to make this abundantly clear. Now, many people say that this is about harboring criminals. This could not be further from the truth. Our local law enforcement spends all of their time making sure that if there are dangerous criminals in the community, that is addressed. What we are talking about here is something entirely different. These are families simply looking for their own version of the American dream. They come here full of hope, doing whatever it takes and make any sacrifice so that their children can have a better life. It is our responsibility as Americans to stand up for them and let them know that this is their home, regardless of their immigration status. Each resident is a contributor to our vibrant, thriving community. Each resident is an invaluable part of who we are. And there are so many people who simply want to help, and many of them are standing with us here today. So over the next several days, we will be connecting with our partners to continue to share out information so that everyone knows their rights. And we want everyone to know how you can best be an ally and contribute to the cause. And God forbid, something does happen in our community. We want those who are affected to know the information that will be vital on what steps they need to take. We will be sure to share the latest developments as they come in, and we want everyone to know that Providence Police will not be part of these inhumane immigration actions in our community. Whatever may come, I know that here we will stand as one Providence. Thank you, everyone. And so I want to recognize Councilwoman Nirva LaFortune. Thank you so much for joining us. And
thank you. So I was just thinking, as the mayor was speaking, this is actually the space that I was in many, many years ago, because I too was an undocumented immigrant. And it's here, the people here at the International House before it merged with Dorcas, where they helped my family, helped me gain legal status. There's a lot of perceptions in our society about immigrants and why people choose to come to this country. For many people, they give up their whole life. I know for me, I left behind a life I knew, and I also left people that I've never seen after I left because they passed away. And there are those who don't want to come because they don't want to transition into a new culture. They have to learn the language, and those people are in situations that are dire, like my grandfather, who's murdered, brutally murdered during the coup in Haiti in the 1990s. So people who make the decisions to leave their home country, to come to America, to seek opportunity, to seek freedom, to seek educational opportunities that perhaps their home country cannot offer their children, their grandchildren, their family members, they're making a significant sacrifice. I was once an undocumented immigrant, and I am no criminal. I have an education, I have a graduate degree. In fact, I have an Ivy League graduate degree, because this is what an immigrant looks like. And many of us here are immigrants, because the true Americans are our indigenous population, our indigenous community. So I am so proud to live in a city that realizes and understands and embraces the diversity of all people. What we do need to do, and what our government needs to focus on, is creating an immigration policy where people can have a pathway into citizenship or legal status. But treating people in an inhumane manner, putting children in cages, separating children from their families. My mother had to make the tough decision to leave me behind as a toddler. I didn't know my mother when I came to America. My father also had to make that decision. So it's important for us to not only protect these individuals, but to ensure that they have the resources that they need to gain legal status. And the approach that this administration is taking is not the right way. So I thank all of you. I thank our city leaders. I thank everyone who's on this stage for doing the work that they're doing to ensure that all people are treated fairly, and to ensure that we provide opportunities for all and access for all, because everyone deserves to be in a safe country. Everyone deserves to have access to an adequate education. Everyone deserves to be treated in a humane manner. So thank you.
So I wanted to have Councilwoman LaFortune speak before I did, because what I would like for people to understand is that her story, while impressive, isn't singular. I too came here as an undocumented immigrant, escaping a very violent situation in Colombia, and now I am a practicing immigration attorney. And I can guarantee you that in order to sit for the bar exam and be admitted to practice, I too had to prove that I am no criminal. So I encourage you all to keep an open mind, and when you're talking about these people, to remember the dignity and humanity that is in each human being before making grand pronouncements about who a class of people are. And I want to especially thank Mayor Elorza for taking the opportunity today to bring the community together and to assure the community in Providence that during this very uncertain time, he is providing some certainty by announcing that the commissioner and the law enforcement agents will not be cooperating with these enforcement actions. So I thank you for taking that very bold step today, and I know that it takes a lot to stand up here and do that as the executive of the city of Providence. That said, what can our community expect over the weekend and the coming weeks? There isn't much that we can tell you with certainty about what's going to occur over the next couple of weeks. The only thing that we can tell you is that based on some tweets and some information that has been leaked, it seems as though the targets of these enforcement actions will be people with outstanding removal orders. But that doesn't mean that those are the only people who will be affected. You have to remember that all of these actions have collateral consequences, and they affect everybody in the family and in some occasions in the community. Additionally, fortunately, we've had the mayor say what he said about Providence, but if you think about places like Arizona and Alabama and other places that are not as welcoming to individuals, do you really think that ICE and enforcement agents are going to sit there and parse out who the people with the outstanding removal orders are from the people who do not have outstanding removal orders are? I don't believe they will, and I've seen it many times in my practice where they detain now and ask questions later, and we're seeing that with the situation at the border. So it does take a community like this coming together and helping the people who are suffering from this uncertainty at a time like this. To our undocumented population out there, I wanna make sure that you know what your rights are. First of all, if you have somebody knocking at your door, identifying themselves as an ICE officer, you absolutely have the right to not open your door. You have the right to ask that that ICE officer present you with a warrant that is signed by a judicial officer. And that is a very critical distinction from the warrants that they typically use, which are just signed by another ICE agent or officer sitting behind their desk at the offices of Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Once you see a warrant signed by a judicial officer, then you probably should at that point turn yourself into the immigration authorities to prevent some of these collateral consequences that we were talking about earlier, like your family and friends being detained who may be in the home with you. However, if the warrant is not signed by a judicial officer, you do not have to open the door at all. Once you have encountered an ICE officer, if you encounter them coming home from work, or if you actually make the mistake to open the door before you realize who's behind it, you have the absolute right to remain silent. And this is very critical. You should not lie to an immigration official, however, you do not have to say anything at all. And that is a very critical distinction. You shouldn't say that you are somebody else because you're afraid that they're going to take you in, but you do not have to say who you are. And you should not say anything until you have had the advice and counsel of an immigration attorney. If you're unsure who to turn to, because there are a lot of attorneys and there are a lot of immigration attorneys and people don't know who they can trust in these uncertain times, you can reach out to your community partners like Dorcas International, Progreso Latino, Sojourner House, and the Catholic Diocese here in Providence. Those are the 4 BIA accredited institutions here in Rhode Island that can help you either with their own advice and counsel or by finding reputable immigration attorneys in the community that can help you. So just remember, don't open the door until you've seen a warrant signed by a judicial officer, and don't say anything at all until you've had the opportunity to speak to an immigration attorney.